council. Let it be known that at the hour 11:15 this day, Albert Edward, Prince of Wales, and his brother, the Duke of Honour, shall arrive at the market square and then proceed with great pageantry to Buckleys yesterday well.
I declare Buckleys yesterday's world well and truly open.
Let's step inside Buckleys yesterday's world and experience a day in a bygone age when Queen Victoria ruled the British Empire.
We are pleased that you have come to visit our throne room. Though temporary, it affords gracious views of the castellated gatehouse of the Abbey. You are requested to view with interest our night attire, perfectly preserved from our reign, as well as other items of personal wear, particularly my chemise and silk stockings. We have also a fine bracelet of dear Albert Victor, my grandson, who died so young. Notice, if you will, his crest. Observe also our royal lineage, showing our descent and ascension to the throne. Our royal and regal descendants. God give grace and favour to them.
My grandmother, Mrs. Collier, she was our dressmaker, the first one. And my grandmother, her hair used to reach the ground, or drag on the ground. And old Queen Victoria heard all about this, and she made my grandmother take her hair down in the shower. But she wasn't very pleased either. She used to have it in a bun, you know, around here.
Stephen Tutt, a local resident, has many other vivid memories of his childhood.
You know, when I was about 8 years old, before I was 8 years old exactly, I used to work in the grocer's shop. Hour before I went to school and an hour after school. All day Saturday, about 8 or 9 hours. About 3 hours Sunday morning. And Sunday afternoon I used to get a cup of tea and a nice piece of cake. Oh, that was good. For that I used to get 1 and threepence. Perhaps I only get 12 pennies, but sometimes I used to get 1 and threepence. That was 15 pennies. And don't forget there was 240 pence in a pound in them days. Yeah, she used to get me weighing up the sugar. The sugar used to come in big bags, in a canvas bag, more like a wheat bag. About 100 weight and a half, I expected, or 100 weight of sugar in them. I used to have to weigh it up in these blue packets, put a pound in some of them, half a pound in the other. The thing was, the half pound used to go in the pound bags. Some poor old soul, they only got half a pound of sugar bag and all. The cube sugar, they used to come in big boxes. You used to call it tight and little sugar boxes. The boys used to love them, get these boxes and make lovely trucks. And the fathers used to look for rabbit hutches. And some poor old soul in our row, she was so poor she had one. She used to turn it up on its end, put 2 newspapers on it, and use it as a table for dinner. This grocer's shop. I used to like to get an old OXO, put it in a cup, with some hot water, some stale bread. That used to be a meal of the day, you know, in them days.
The grocer stocked a wide variety of goods, including these beautiful novelty biscuit tins. Many items were sold loose, like tea, sugar, cheese and butter, which had to be patted and weighed for every customer's requirements. Broken biscuits were also available. After the errand boy had been employed for a year, he was allowed as a treat a broken biscuit from the threepenny-a-pound tin instead of the twopenny-a-pound tin. A really special treat was an enormous sticky gobstopper, which seemed to last forever. After work, the boys rushed to play with their hoops.
The bigger and thicker the iron hoops, the better the hoop was. If you got the biggest iron hoop in the school, the best one, you was it. You used to have a skid to make them go along. Now and again, perhaps you'd bash into the nearest wall, and the poor old hoop would get broken where it'd been joined up. So what we used to do, we used to go down old Trowell's forge. If you'd only got a penny, he'd charge you a penny for mending it, but if you got tuppence, you had to pay tuppence, you know. Now and again, the old lady in the shop would give me a drink out of a bottle. It was probably one she couldn't sell. It was one of them bottles with a marble in the top. You know, you have to push it in before you can drink it. That was all right. Because I used to take bottle and all of them. When nobody looking, I used to smash the bottle to get the marble out. Yeah, used to love playing marbles, you know. Then I used to chop all the firewood and bobbins. You know, put a bit of string in it twice, a bit of binder twine or something. Tied as tight as you could, and to get them tighter, you used to get a few pieces and drive them down with a hammer like that in the winter to make them go really tight. They were tuppence and threepence in the shop.
The groceries had to be delivered by bicycle to the kitchens of the well-to-do houses, where a large staff worked long hours for very low pay.
Get that cleaning finished, because I need you to give a hand with this stew. But I'm so tired I had to start an hour early this morning, all because Mr. Finch demanded his jug hot water at 5 o'clock. Well, it's Mr. Finch's responsibility to rouse his lordship, and you know the master had to go up to London. He scolded me because I was 2 minutes late. He should try washing in cold water like I do. Oh, stop your moaning, girl. You're lucky to have a job at all. You're getting slovenly, you are. And when did you last blacklead that range? Look at it.
Blackleading the iron cooking range in the early morning was just one of the many duties of household staff. All cooking was done on the range, using cast iron pots and kettles. When making tea, the teapot was warmed with boiling water before measuring out the loose tea, which was stored in a special tin-lined box to make sure it stayed fresh. The box was kept locked by the housekeeper. The cook had to feed all the family and all the staff without the aid of pre-packed foods from a freezer. Labour-saving gadgets were always being invented. They included the Kent's patent knife cleaner. It was filled with abrasive powder. The knives inserted and the handle rotated, making the leather straps inside the drum polish the steel blades of the ivory-handled knives until they shone. Another remarkable invention was the early version of the vacuum cleaner. Completely Maid-powered, this amazing machine must have given many a servant backache. Of course, luxuries like this could not be afforded in the poorer homes. Washing had to be done in a tin bath.
You know that same old bath used to have to order washing for a week? Used to dig a hole out in the garden, a shallow hole like that. Put 2 old bed irons over it like that. You know what the old bed irons that come off a bed, don't you? Stand the old bath on it. 3 or 4 pails of water, perhaps 4 pails of water in it. Packet of rinso in it, stir it up. Put her clothes in and soak it all night. Next morning, come out, we'd light a fire underneath there with old bits of wood, logs, anything with it, but boil it all up, didn't we? And when it began to boil, of course, when I was a boy, we used to have this here plunger, we used to plunge it up and down like this here. Get all the dirt out of it, you know. Yeah. About 3/4 hour of that, I'd had enough. Anyway, we was taking each bit by bit out the bar, put in old pail and rinsed. Only cold water, you know, wrung out and put on the line. Well, that bar, that washing was for the whole week for the family, you know. You didn't have a shirt every day in them days, a clean shirt, no. Damn lucky if you got one once a week. You know, some poor old soul down the road there up in New Sussex lay in bed Sunday mornings so she could wash his shirt, so she could go down to the pub in the afternoon with a clean shirt. Because he'd only got the one shirt, you see.
When the mangle had squeezed out most of the water, the clothes went off to the washing line in the garden. Monday was wash day, so the ironing was done on Tuesday. Pairs of flat irons or sad irons were heated on the range for use on the stiffly starched linen. The charcoal iron opened at the top to be filled with hot coals from the fire. I wonder if the clothes stayed as clean as the rinso had made them. Finally, the clothes were aired on the clothes horse in front of the fire, before being carefully stored in large linen baskets. If stored for any length of time, mothballs would be included, adding their distinctive smell to everything around. Many of the housekeeping polishes and powders were purchased at the ironmonger's. And Aladdin's cave. Behind the shopkeeper, a stack of drawers concealed a vast collection of small wares such as nuts and bolts, screws, pipe fittings, hinges. The walls were covered with every conceivable type of tool, and even the ceiling was used for display. If you were tired of blackleading the grate with zebra grate polish, then you might be tempted to buy the very latest in electric cookers. No need to worry about fire with hardened star fire grenades filled with chemicals. Many houses relied on paraffin or gas for heating and lighting. When electricity was first introduced, everyone was curious to see the effect. As well as light bulbs, this shop sold radio valves for the latest invention of wireless.
Did I tell you about our old radio, first old radio we had? Used to be on 2LO London, 2LO London. We used to have two great big poles outside, about 60 foot apart, about 25 foot high, copper wire coming right down to come down to the window, then come through the window, and then there's an old aerial switch. So if you had a thunderstorm outside, you could switch it off, in case the aerial got hit with lightning. Anyhow, we did lightning one day. We got the aerial switched over, but that didn't stop it. It jumped over the aerial switch and blew it to blazes. Now, do you know what that thing cost us? It cost us £4. That radio. We couldn't buy another one, that was it.
This portable set was the same model as His Royal Highness Edward VIII and Mrs. Simpson took on their picnics. For the Victorian parlour, the cylinder phonograph was a must. The wax cylinder was played by a permanent sapphire needle. Victorian society was entranced to hear all their favourite musical artists at home. The phonograph was succeeded by the gramophone, with changeable needles and flat, breakable records, which revolved 78 times a minute, provided you had turned the handle sufficiently. Victorian fascination for new invention was further increased by the discovery of photography.
Hold very still now, madam. The first photographic process was announced as far back as 1839. The original cameras were wooden boxes using coated metal plates for the photographic image. The pleated bellows camera came into use in the late 1850s. The handheld camera, a smaller version of the bellows box camera, became popular towards the end of the 1870s, but it was still necessary to use a darkroom to change the plates, which were now glass. In 1888, an American George Eastman brought out a camera which was sold ready loaded with a roll of paper-backed film. When exposed, the whole camera had to be returned to the factory for processing and reloading. The camera was called Kodak. A development of this camera with a removable roll of film was the cheap and popular Brownie. After the First World War, the German firm of Leitz marketed a folding camera using 35mm film, which was copied by the British company Ensign. The Ensign camera on display was used in the 1930s by a sports photographer for the Eastbourne Gazette. And smile, please.
The firm of Judges, the foremost postcard manufacturer, was started in Hastings in 1902 and soon opened 10 branches all over the country. Holidays, however, was still the privilege of the rich. The poor were more concerned about repairing their shoes, a job very often undertaken by the father of the family, before resorting to paying the cobbler. If money was really short, then regular visits to the pawnbroker would have to be made.
I became a pawnbroker's assistant in 1908, at the age of 14, with a salary of 7 shillings and sixpence a week. That's less than 38p. The duties included guarding the shop at night, so I had to sleep under the counter. But I had that homemade alarm bell you can see to your left in case of intruders. And see those triple pens on the desk at the front? They were used for each transaction or pledge. One copy for the records, one for the customer, and one attached to the item pledged. A bed sheet, for example, was valued at 1 shilling and sixpence, and the customer would pay a penny for the ticket, then 8p per week for every 2 shillings borrowed. We had scores of poor people every Monday morning bringing in their Sunday best clothes and even their bed linen, still damp from washing, and they're redeeming it on payday. That's if they could afford to. And you know, if the pledges weren't redeemed after a year and 7 days, the pawnbroker was allowed by law to sell the items at auction.
A strict disciplinarian made this beautifully decorated birthday card for his aging mother in 1907 and gave it to her as a token of his affection. Christmas and birthday cards became popular in the Victorian times, as were other forms of love tokens. One of the children's favourite shops must have been the chocolate shop, where the shelves were packed tight by jars of aniseed twist, boxes of nougat, and tins of Sharp's nut super cream toffee. So difficult to choose between licorice bootlaces and sherbet lemons, while distracted by the pecking chicken. A quarter of dolly mixtures, please. They sold beautifully decorated Easter eggs too, and handmade chocolates. A tin was sent to the soldiers in the trenches, who would choose between chocolate and tobacco. John Player, king of the tobacco barons, started in business as a small seed merchant. The farmers would call at his store for supplies, and they asked him to get some tobacco in stock. At first he sold the tobacco loose, weighing it into twists of paper when they called. As this was usually in the dinner hour, he found it difficult to cope with the rush. So he decided to pack the tobacco beforehand. He wrapped the tobacco individually for each farmer with their preferred brand. In this way, he could hand the goods over the counter in double quick time and serve more customers. He then decided to put his own name on the packets. The vast empire of John Player was born. Many of the other brand names here have long since disappeared, taken over by the Imperial Tobacco Company. Toy shop windows like these must have brought a sparkle to many children's eyes. The delicate china dolls were usually made in Germany. Little girls played with replicas of the kitchen in which their servants worked for such long hours. Boys had marbles, toy cars, clockwork trains, and toy lead soldiers, which could be mended with the aid of a lighted match. Just across the road from the toy shop was the chemist, with a cure for all manner of ills. The pharmacist mixed the prescriptions with a pestle and mortar, making pills, pastes and liquids. Part of the shop also sold patent medicines to cover every eventuality. In those days there was no national health service. Doctors and hospitals were expensive, so people tried to cure themselves with mixed success. Dental and optical treatment was also available, but rather basic. The dentist's drill was foot operated by a series of cogs and wheels. Sterilisation was unknown, and babies' bottles and teats were used unsterilised and caused endless suffering and death by gastroenteritis. In the larger houses, the children and their nannies occupied a separate floor, only seeing their parents at certain times. They had their own day room for lessons with their governess. Perhaps when they had finished with the 3 hours, reading, writing and arithmetic, they'd be allowed to visit the travelling fair. And if it rained, then the playroom at home was well equipped with plenty of toys. They included this magnificent doll's house, a perfect miniature replica of a house at the turn of the century. Every room furnished in great detail. It once belonged to a little girl called Emily. Cook is busy preparing the dinner, for which the best silver has been laid in the dining room. Mother and father are listening to the gramophone in the parlour. Upstairs, baby is asleep, while the governess organises the playroom and the children have their baths. When the day was almost finished, the children would retire to their bedrooms. On cold nights, the maid would fetch a heated brick from the range to warm the beds. Other methods included the copper warming pan and a stone jar of hot water, the forerunner to today's hot water bottles. Another trip to the kitchen and up the attic stairs to her bedroom for sleep at the end of a long day. Was taught how to sew, so that she could not only make her own clothes, but carry out repairs and alterations. Even silk stockings would be darned to prolong their use for as long as possible. She obviously wants to look her best. Tomorrow is her day off, and she's taking a trip on the railway. By the 1930s, ladies felt able to travel unaccompanied on the railways. There were frequent steam train services, even in quite rural areas, run by 4 independent companies, namely the Great Western, London North Eastern, London Midland and Scottish and Southern Railway, until nationalisation took place in 1948.
Tickets, please, ma'am. Thank you very much.
How long before the next train?
We run along in about 10 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
From our journey into the past, let's step through the level crossing gates into the Buds of May refreshment area. Where we can relax on the terrace overlooking the beautiful Sussex countryside. We can also sample a delicious Sussex cream tea. Complete with homemade scones. Here we find Annette and Brian Buckley relaxing briefly and no doubt reminiscing how yesterday's world started as a collection over 20 years ago. When they kept a newsagent's, Annette started collecting bygones as a hobby, while Brian was away on the golf course. Her first window display and their newsagents won a Good Housekeeping prize, a holiday to Thailand. The collection grew, until the Buckleys Museum of Shops was first opened in 1983. That also proved too small, and today the museum at Battle has tripled in size to become a fascinating collection to enthrall young and old alike. Buckleys, yesterday's world. The gift shop sells nostalgic gifts, such as advertising tins and enamel signs and greetings cards. There is a lovely selection of Victorian-style china-faced dolls, as well as everybody's favourite, the teddy bear. This charming 600-year-old Wealden Hall house was built for Richard Curtis, the accountant at Battle Abbey, the gatehouse of which still stands just across the road from Buckleys. The abbey was built by William the Conqueror to commemorate his victory over King Harold at the Battle of Hastings in 1066, fought on this site, where legend has it that Harold was killed by an arrow in his right eye. This delightful market town was built around the abbey and still offers the visitor a welcome combination of architecture and character throughout the ages. We will say goodbye to beautiful Battle and Buckleys yesterday.